This week I have two Bay Area set films, which always makes me super happy because I am from the Bay Area. I have Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is the sequel to Ant-Man. And I know I've talked extensively about having superhero fatigue, but I have to say I really did enjoy Ant-Man. It takes place before the events of Avengers Infinity War, which if you're following the timeline, God knows where we're at. But basically, it feels kind of isolated from the other ones. Like, there's not a lot of crossover. It's just about the characters in the movie, which I found very refreshing because I'm having so much trouble I'm not actually having trouble keeping track, but it feels exhausting to have to keep track of 10 million cast of characters, and you don't feel like you actually get any character development out of these big kind of team-up films. So it was nice to kind of go back to basics and just have a movie about a superhero, which I can't believe is the standard now, but I love Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. The other thing I like about the Ant-Man films is that they are funny. I laughed so much during this one. I also laughed during like Guardians of the Galaxy, and there are definitely humor moments peppered in through other Marvel films. But I think the Ant-Man ones are comedies. Like, they are comedies that just so happen to feature around superheroes. So Paul Rudd is back as Ant-Man. We do find out what happened to him during Civil War and why he wasn't really a part of some of the other movies that have come out since. Evangeline Lilly is back as Hope Pym. Michael Douglas is back as Hank Pym. And we've got Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet Van Dyne, or the original Wasp. And we find out what happened to her. And this isn't really a spoiler. It's kind of a rescue movie. And then, oh my God, I was so happy to have the supporting cast back. Again, I think they bring the best amount of comedy to it. So Michael Pena is back. T.I. is back, which... Can we talk about how much I love the fact that T.I. is in a Marvel movie playing like a straight man? David Dastmalchian, which I totally butchered his name. I'm so sorry. He's back as Kurt. So they're the kind of the, ex-con gang. And then we're also Judy Greer and Bobby Cannavale are back as Scott Lang's ex-wife and her new beau. And their relationship is very changed in this film. And everyone's kind of like lovey-dovey. And it's actually pretty funny. The daughter's back. She's very funny. And we've got a couple new characters this time around. We've got Randall Park, who plays, I believe, an FBI agent who is set to keep an eye on Scott and his parole and the terms of his, release. And Randall Park is so funny. If you don't watch Fresh Off the Boat, you have to watch it. He's just a great comedian. And then Walton Goggins is one of the bad guys. And then we've also got Hannah John Kemen as one of the bad girls. It's not his fault, but Walton Goggins just sounds like he should be in a Tennessee Williams play. And they keep casting him as villains and things. He was in the latest Tomb Raider, and it just feels like it's so a little bit out of place. And I don't know if he's playing it up or that's just his voice, but I'm like, oh, it feels a tiny bit out of place to me. And Lawrence Fishburne is Bill Foster, who has a comic history or comic book history that I don't super want to spoil for you, but just be excited. Look, I enjoyed the film. It's not the most deep thing. A lot of the, it's a superhero film, so we have to be willing to overlook any sort of logical science regarding the Pym particles, if you recall those from the first movie. I think the dynamics are fun. It's fun to see Michael Douglas and Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd together because I think, it's a funny, hey, you dated my daughter scenario because they do kind of get together at the end of the last film. I want a movie with the ex-criminals. I just want a standalone movie with the ex-criminals about their everyday life in the office. I want the Office ex-cons because they are the highlight of this to me. I like that we had villains who aren't the worst people in the world, the thing about Thanos or pretty much any other the Marvel villains is they're very one-dimensional, oh, I want to destroy everything. Oh, no, this is oh, I actually have a motivation. I have a backstory. I don't want to destroy everything. I just have a motivation that isn't necessarily morally black and white. So I really much appreciated that about this film. Visually, it's fun. There's lots of comedy. This is a lot of comedy. And don't forget to stay to the very, very end. And at the very end scene, without spoilers, I just went, whoa! Because I'd forgotten about a lot of stuff. And so I did a really good job of connecting into oh, okay, that's where we're going. This is how this relates to everything else. And yes, you should have seen Avengers Infinity War before you see this if you're going to stay to the very end. So basically, yes, see Avengers Infinity War. I know I've said superhero fatigue multiple times, and yet I will always continue to go see these movies. But I very much enjoyed this one. I laughed a lot. It felt tonally different. So I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. So then if we're going to the other side of the Bay, Ant-Man and the Wasp takes place mostly in San Francisco, and now we're heading over to Oakland, which is where I'm from, and we've got Sorry to Bother You, and this film is so weird and so interesting, and I'm going to say original. I see a lot of movies, and I don't think I've seen one quite like this. It's got Lakeith Stanfield, who is, he's on Atlanta, and he plays a telemarketer who finds himself on a rise to power within his job that takes him on some twists and turns. The cast is amazing. It's also, the thing I really like about this cast is that it looks like a cast that actually lives in Oakland. Like, there are people of many colors. So in addition to Lakeith Stanfield, it's got Tessa Thompson, who I adore and everything, Stephen Ewan, who thank you for having an Asian character. It's not about him being Asian. He's just there, and it's great, and he's a great actor, so I was very happy to see him. Terry Crews, who I think is, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You gotta love the guy. Danny Glover is in it. Jermaine Fowler. Armie Hammer is just embracing his weird Armie Hammerness, and I love it. I think it's great. I think he stopped trying to fight the kind of white guy douchebag persona that he seems to be associated with, and he is taking roles that make sense for it. There's a lot of great stuff about racial politics and racial identity, and also kind of like cultural identity and how affluence and financial status impact that. There's a lot of layers there. I don't know if it communicates them as well as it could, but there are some very creative ways in which they display that. And I was just like, that's a brilliant filmmaking device. Like, I love that moment. It's a spark of creativity, and even if the whole film is a little bit uneven, like, those moments for me made it so interesting to watch. And look, it gets weird. It gets really, really weird. Go into it with an open mind. Like, I went into it before there was a trailer, before there was anything. I was just like, I heard great things about this movie. I want to see it. And I had a great time as a byproduct of that. Just be open-minded. Don't go in expecting something you've seen before. Just go for the performances. Go for the character dynamics. Go for the weird, surrealist moments, and just enjoy the ride. I'm going to give this one 4.2 out of 5. I really think it's worth seeing. I think we need to be supporting, creativity and expressiveness and things that don't sort of fit within the regular constraints of maybe traditional filmmaking, and maybe they do. Who knows? But either way, I think it's worth supporting. It's worth seeing. I had a good time. Made me think. It's got a great cast. Like, what is there not to enjoy? So sorry to bother you. 4.2 out of 5.